Abdu, we know there's lots of different beliefs out there. Is there a way that we as Christians can communicate the gospel in a way that resonates across belief lines?
I think it should be fairly obvious, but the answer is no. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. One problem with evangelists is that they don't seem to actually get their audience. They seem to think that all they have to do to convert somebody is to tell them how much they love their religion. You don't change someone's mind by fan-wanking all over them. People don't work like that.
Sure, and I think the Apostle Paul actually directly addresses this in Colossians chapter 4, when he says, walk in wisdom toward outsiders, making the best use of the time. In other words, answer the questions they're actually asking, not the ones you wish they asked.
Yeah.
Which sounds great, but then he proceeds to do nothing of the kind. If anything, he does the exact opposite and answers the question he wishes people had asked.
Letting your speech be gracious, seasoned with salt, and the best part of it, he says, so you may know how you ought to answer each person. Not each worldview, not each religion, not each objection, each person. Because questions don't need answers, but people do.
And as a person, I need my questions answered. My actual questions, not some existential, unasked, hole-in-my-psyche question that the evangelist thinks I want answered. The actual questions I actually ask with my actual voice. Again, he's contradicting himself by trying to answer the question he wishes I'd ask, the question he thinks I'm actually asking. He needs to take people on their own terms, which he obviously can't do, because if he did, he'd have to face the fact that his religion has no answers to difficult questions.
And they come with their questions to get themselves answered. So I think the way to actually communicate the gospel across varying worldviews is to find out what people actually care about. What does the atheist actually care about? What is his grand central question, as it were, about life?
About life? My question isn't about life. Like I said, my question isn't some hole in my psyche, I need a grand purpose kind of question. My question is, does your God actually exist, or is he just a myth? And how can you prove it in a way that makes faith unnecessary? That's my actual question. Because until that one is answered, everything else you have to say is meaningless. If you really want to play to your audience, you gotta go there.
What is the pantheist, whether he's a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Scientologist? What is the grand central theme of his quest? What is the Muslim's central theme? So for secular humanists, you have it right in the name. Humanism is the idea of human exceptionalism. There's something about human beings that's special. We're not just amoeba or plankton or mushrooms. We're something more than that. We're invested with dignity. But the secular humanist says we don't need God to justify that. The problem is now it's just this amorphous concept. The gospel actually says, you're right, humanist, human beings are special, not because we decided that based on our opinions, but based on the fact that we are made in God's image. The objective value giver gives us objective value.
You say that God is a fact, but you don't show it. You don't prove it. This is an appeal to emotion, but humanists prefer reason and evidence over dogma and superstition. It doesn't matter whether humanism is, to you, a nebulous concept, and it might not be so to a humanist. What matters is that you're trying to convince people that you're right while making unsupported claims about an objective value giver that you never show is real. And you presuppose that humanism is about objective value, a mistake theists always make. But value is subjective by definition. By its very nature. A glass of water is more valuable than $1 million to a man dying of thirst in the desert. Value is about what someone cares about, and that's all.
For the pantheist, if you look at all strains of pantheism, they're trying to get around the problem of suffering. How do we escape the suffering cycle over and over again? Their solution is either detachment from suffering or to realize suffering is an illusion. The Christian worldview actually dignifies suffering by saying it's so real that the ground of all reality, who is God himself, experiences it so that one day we don't have to.
I'm not a pantheist myself, so I had to do a little homework on this one. What's funny is that doing the Google searches, most of the conversations on the problems of suffering and evil that I've found were Christians saying how wrong pantheists are. Eventually I was able to find something written by actual pantheists, and what I read is not that suffering doesn't exist, but rather that the universe is indifferent to it, that it's part of the universe with which we just have to cope. The thing is, pantheists already have their own concept of God. A Christian telling them that the flavor of their deity tastes better isn't going to address the existence of that God, which is what they'll have to do to change someone's mind. Like I said, you don't convince people you're right by fan-wanking all over them.
And then you look at the Muslim. The Muslim commonly says, Allahu Akbar. It literally means God is greater. So for the Muslim, the central idea of religion is worshiping a God who is truly great. Well, the Christian faith answers that, I think, better than Islam does or any other worldview, because in the Christian faith, the greatest possible being, who is God, expresses the greatest possible ethic, which is love, in the greatest possible way, which is self-sacrifice.
And Coke says it tastes better than Pepsi. Doesn't mean I'm gonna prefer it. Why do they think that this is gonna be convincing? It's like they don't hear themselves. It's like they don't understand that what floats their ducky might sink someone else's.
So for the pantheist, suffering is dealt with on the cross. For the atheist who wants to believe in human value, you know how valuable something is by what you're willing to pay for it. There's the cross. And for the Muslim, they want to worship a God who is truly great. The cross is a demonstration of God's utter greatness. So I think the way to do this is to find out what someone actually cares about, study the gospel to find out how it addresses that, and then answer them where they are.
The thing is, that's actually not bad advice, answering someone where they are. The problem is, he isn't doing it. He's sidestepping the real questions and problems, then for some reason thinking that's a reasonable and effective tactic. These guys will never see my response. The comments on their video are, of course, disabled. And they probably wouldn't care even if they did watch it. But if there is someone out there watching this video and who is a preacher or evangelist, please understand that you're barking up the wrong tree if you try these tactics. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. It doesn't matter whether I thought it was gonna be blooper free. It doesn't matter whether I can't do it.
Captain's log. We are investigating an asteroid field where we've had reports of strange signals. So far we've found nothing, but our reconnaissance continues.
Captain, unidentified object approaching.
Scan object.
Aye, scanning object.
Captain, the object appears to be bombarding us with Patreon particles.
Is there any damage?
None. In fact, it seems to be giving us even more strength.
Fascinating. It seems that Patreon beams are a benefit to our mission. We must seek out more Patreonic life forms. Plot course and prepare to engage Bionic Drive.
People not subscribing to BionicDance is one sign of the apocalypse. Save us all. Subscribe now.